Hey everyone, today's video is going to be a book discussion on Lord of Shadows by Cassandra Clare. It's taken me over a month to read this book because it's just so ginormous, but I finally made it through and finished it last night. It left me emotional and breathless and just a little upset. I am ready to just get all of my feelings out in the open with this video and talk to all of you about it. So I'm sure you know all about Cassandra Clare's series. You have The Mortal Instruments, The Infernal Devices, and then this is the second book in her third series, The Dark Artifices. These series are separate, but I think you need to read all of them before starting this third series. So I'd kind of say this is almost like the 11th book in this series, if you will. But if you haven't read Cassandra Clare's books yet, please do. They're so fun, full of great characters and wonderful storylines, and I just love how all three series kind of weave together. It's really quite beautiful. I would highly recommend all of Cassandra Clare's books, but we're just going to talk about Lord of Shadows in this video, and it's going to be full of spoilers. If you haven't read this book, please don't watch this video. I'll have a new video coming up soon, but just please skip this one because I don't want to spoil you. Let's just go ahead and get into it because I don't know how long this video is going to be. So I'm gonna just start off with my rating and my general thoughts on Lord of Shadows. I actually think I'm going to give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I don't know if I can give it the full 5 stars. While I was reading it, I was like, you know, I'm just not enjoying it as much as I enjoyed Lady Midnight and the previous books. I just felt like it was a little overly long. It dragged a little bit. It didn't keep me on the edge of my seat at night when I was reading. It was super easy for me to just kind of set it down and go to sleep. Like, it just didn't keep me engaged for the entire time. Sure, there were some super exciting parts that I sped through and some really good, you know, cliffhangers at the end of chapters where I want to keep reading the next chapter. But I did find myself, you know, looking ahead and seeing when the chapter was going to end, being like, hey, how much more can I read before I put this down? Like, I don't know. Some parts were more exciting than others, but while I was reading it, it just wasn't as fun as I was expecting it to be. I'm still in love with this series and, you know, all of Cassandra Clare's books and this world. I love this world so much. And so, yeah, I mean, 4 stars is still an excellent rating. It just didn't grab me as much as I wanted it to. And I did make some notes for this video, and then when I was going through those notes, I realized I actually did kind of have a lot to talk about, and a lot did happen in this book. So I was like, okay, you know, I do see that a lot happened, and it was a good sequel. I mean, it perfectly picked up on storylines from Lady Midnight and then started new storylines to keep us, you know, excited and anxiously awaiting the next book. So it was a really good sequel, its own unique element, so that it didn't feel like just a filler book. So I think it was a good book. It was great. I just didn't get the level of excitement I was hoping for while reading this book, and that could have been I was just in a reading slump. I have a lot going on, so it could have been just my mind was other places whenever I was trying to read it, and it just took me so long. But you know, what can I say? That was my experience. But I did really enjoy it, and I have a lot to talk about. I know I'm like the 100th person to make a video on this book, so a lot of what I say is probably not going to be much different from other people's videos, but maybe so. I actually really haven't read many other reviews. I kind of skimmed a few reviews on Goodreads, but I haven't really watched a lot of other people's videos, so maybe I'll be saying something different. Like, how do I even start talking about this book? I feel like it's so hard to organize these types of book discussion videos, but I'm just going to jump right in and talk about, you know, Lady Midnight left to where Emma and Mark had decided to fake their relationship so that Julian would hopefully fall out of love with Emma and they wouldn't, you know, suffer from this curse of the parabody falling in love, whatever. We all knew that was, you know, not gonna work. There's a little glimmer of hope, not even hope, but there was just a little glimmer of maybe Emma and Mark would have something, because he was like, oh, why do we pretend, you know, why do we have to pretend, and then they kissed or whatever. But I kind of knew. I was like, this isn't gonna work out. I just couldn't imagine it working out between Emma and Mark, and I never really felt a chemistry between them in like the romance department. I think they have a great, you know, brother-sister relationship, and it's interesting, you know, because she's not really part of the Blackthorn family, but kind of, you know, but kind of is, because she's been with them her whole life. And so it's an interesting interaction between them two. But as the book started and continued, I was just kind of over them pretending. It's kind of a pet peeve of mine in books, especially, you know, in romances, where one person is keeping a secret from the other person. It's like, if you would just open up to the other person and tell them what's going on and explain the situation, y'all could probably figure out, you know, a solution together. And that's how I felt about this whole deal with Emma and Julie and the curse. I was just like, they just need to talk about it, they'll come up with a solution, or not, or whatever, but they just need to both be on the same page. I was so tired of, you know, Julian and Emma both being in so much pain because they couldn't be with each other and blah 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 blah. So I think it's a very interesting storyline, to pair body falling in love. We haven't seen that before. I was just ready for them to start figuring out how to fix it, or what was gonna happen, you know. So I was so glad when Emma finally told him, and that was like towards sort of the end of the book. Like, it took a while to get there, and then they were like, oh, we're so in love, and you do love me. Yes, I love you, Julian. Oh, okay. Yeah, finally, we're both on the same page. Anyway, moving on. I want to talk about Julian for a little bit. I find his character so intriguing. It's one of my favorite parts of this story, is learning more about Julian, seeing him change and develop, and, you know, now he really, it's all out in the open that he has been taking care of these children. He's been running the institute, that Arthur, you know, was mentally unstable and wasn't able to do it, so Julian took over. Everyone knows that now. And so he's kind of changing a little bit, and the relationships between him and the siblings kind of started changing and developing into something different. Also, the siblings are getting older, and that's another thing I'm going to touch on later. I just think he's really unique, and to me he just kind of stands out. I don't think he's really similar to any other characters we've really seen in this series. His love for his family just makes him really intriguing to me, and he's also, you know, going a little darker in this book, or a lot darker, I don't know. He, yeah, he'll do anything for his family. He's very cutthroat when it comes to protecting the ones that he loves. And he's got to figure out this situation with Emma, and it seems like any solution that's been brought up is not really ideal. Either they're going to be separated, or something bad's going to happen to them or to other people, the people they love. And, you know, they both still want to remain shadow hunters. They'd like to remain parabati if possible. Their bond may weaken if Emma goes into exile, but then we really don't even know what's going to happen with all of that, because now Robert Lightwood is gone and he was going to help them. So I really don't know what's going to happen with them, and I honestly don't think it's going to be a happy ending. I just don't see it working out perfectly. Cassandra Clare is the queen of having bittersweet endings, so there's going to be something really sad that happens, I'm sure, at the end of the next book, but that kind of maybe leaves us a little bit satisfied, or kind of heals the wounds, but it's still, I know it's gonna have some sort of bitterness to it. A lot of relationships really start developing in this story. We have this weird thing going on with Christina, Kieran, and Mark. I really don't know how I feel about that. I definitely see a chemistry between Christina and Mark and Kieran, and I've seen a lot of people say they just want all three of them to be together. I don't know about all that. Honestly, I really like Mark and Kieran together. They've both been through so much, and so many hardships, and so much pain, and I kind of like them together. And then I'm like, well, then who's Christina gonna be with? I don't know. Maybe someone new will come in. But then Christina and Kieran is really interesting. They had an interesting and kind of sexy connection and chemistry when they were like dancing in the ballroom and everything. But was he just doing that to kind of make Mark feel something? I don't know. I am very intrigued to see where that goes. What about Jaime? What about Christina and Jaime? Is that something that could possibly happen? I know he kind of ran away and he's off doing his mission and plan that him and Diego, you know, were figuring out and all of that, and he kind of has a lot on his plate, but I kind of saw a spark there. I mean, maybe a little bit. It might be kind of weird because of Diego, but who knows? Kit and Ty. Oh my goodness, could we get any cuter and any more feels? Like, I ship them. I don't know, I think they're supposed to be a ship. Like, I think that's happening, especially with the way like Kit describes his feelings around Ty, and how Kit really understands Ty, and just, Oh my goodness, my goodness. I love them, and I loved every scene where Kit and Ty were hanging out or going on their missions or whatever. Like, I just love their interaction, and I love seeing it grow and change. Ty now feels like he kind of has someone that's going to be there for him, since Livy will not be there for him. I can't talk about it yet. Now he'll have someone that really understands him, that's going to stay with him and not leave him, hopefully. You know, you never know with Cassandra Clare. I like them. I like them a lot. And just to throw this in, we learned more about Diana, which I am so thankful for, because that was one thing I was really kind of ticked off by in Lady Midnight, is Diana's secret. I'm like, she has this secret about why she won't run the Institute. Why? We need to know. And I'm like, if we don't find out in Lord of Shadows what her secret, her past is all about, I'm going to be upset. But thankfully, we did learn. And it's pretty cool. Like, I was like, oh, we haven't really met any transgender shadow hunters, and the way that the world and this council would deal with that situation. So that was informative, and also just a really cool addition to the story. Her and Gwen's relationship, surprising, very surprising. I didn't think it was going to actually develop into something. When it was first hinted at, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, he flirts with her, you know, that's funny. And then it actually turned into a thing, and she's like, oh yeah, I'll go ride with you on your flying horse, totally, let's go hang out in this forest. I was really surprised by that, but I like it. I like his response to her telling him all about herself. I think it's a good thing, but I can't wait to see what happens with that in the next book. I'm really interested in this little plan that Jaime and Diego have, with Diego marrying Zara so that they can, because Zara wanted to marry Diego so that she could get the little artifact thing. Then Diego and Jaime came up with like their own plan, and Jaime was just kind of telling Christina, you know, there's more to it. Christina's like, that just doesn't seem like it's gonna work. You're just buying time to figure it out. Like, that doesn't seem like a solid plan. And Jaime was kind of like, well, there's a little more to it that I'm not going to tell you right now. And I'm like, okay, I think that whole thing, that whole plan is really come to be in the next book and maybe play a major part. Because, I mean, that whole thing with the artifact was kind of, you know, dusted under the rug, where Drew grabbed it and went to that little whatever cave thing with that little boy Ash. I mean, that happened, but it wasn't really brought up again in any sort of way. So I think that's going to be a major role in the next one. Especially, I have a really special connection with Drew. I love how we got to get more insight on her in this book, with her and Jaime, her holding Jaime in her room and everything. Like, I like her, and I like that she has kind of been on the back burner a little bit in this story, because she kind of isn't really in the spotlight. I think she is really, really going to shine in the next book, and she's going to play a big part. And I really liked that dynamic between her and Julian, where she straight up told Julian, no, I'm coming. I am coming with you. I'm going to stay with you, and I'm going to help you. I am a shadow hunter. I am old enough to do this. Like, at my age, you and Emma, we're doing all kinds of crazy stuff and whatever, being full-on shadow hunters. I want to be a full-on shadow hunter. I don't just want to be a babysitter. And I was like, go Drew, go you. I am so excited to see her stepping up, and I just can't wait to see what happens with her. And that was what I was mentioning about Julian and his relationship with his siblings. They're starting to get older now. I mean, you still have Tabby, who's little, and kind of Julian's little baby, but, you know, they're getting older, and they don't really need so much the father figure that Julian was providing, you know, earlier on. So now he's kind of gonna start having to deal with that. Siblings that he's always looked at as like babies, people that need protecting, growing up and getting stronger, and maybe not needing so much protection from him. But then again, tragedy happened with Livy, and now he's gonna freak out and be like, no, I really, really need to protect y'all because look what happened to Livy. So I don't know, it's gonna be an interesting dynamic. Julian's probably just gonna get really dark and depressed and just go on this huge revenge killing spree or something. I don't know. The next book's gonna be so, like, I really think it's gonna be dark and depressing. I just don't see much light. Like, everything has gone to crap, especially at the end of this book. Like, everything's gone to crap. I really don't even see like a glimmer of anything majorly happy happening, but who knows what Cassandra Clare has up her sleeve. One of the big shocks was Annabelle killing Malcolm. Didn't see that coming. I thought it was a great twist. I loved it. And Annabelle is also another fascinating element to the story. Is she dead? Is she alive? They kind of described her as really being alive, like being back to herself as a shadow hunter. But she seems so mentally unstable. And it may be that like that whole time she was down there alive but not really alive. She was just plotting this crazy scheme to get back at everyone for all the horrible things that, you know, the Shadowhunters, the Inquisitor, whatever, did to her. This was all part of her plan. That's a very viable prediction option that I've seen some people mention. However, I really think that she's just off her wagon, understandably. I mean, what she went through was horrendous, and I'm not saying she's excused from the things that happened at the end of the book or justified, but I mean, you can see why that would happen. I mean, her having to hold the mortal sword and not being so painful and kind of bringing back memories of the terrible things that happened to her. So I really think she just truly wholeheartedly believed Julian when he said, Magnus is going to be with you. He's going to help you. He'll protect you. And Julian like promised her the Blackthorn Manor, you know, saying you can take over it, you'll live this happy life, you'll have what you wanted, you know, live in your, you know, solace or whatever, your peacefulness, and finally have a life that you wanted after all of this torture that you've been through. Well, that didn't happen, and that was obviously not going to happen after, I mean, Magnus wasn't there with her to begin with, and there was a moment where she said, but Julian, you told me I would have Blackthorn Manor, and it was like it was just crushing to her, and she realized that that wasn't going to happen. And so I really think she was just very unstable and emotional and just exploded and just went on a rage kill, and I can kind of understand why. Obviously, it's horrible. I wish that Livy did not die at her hands. I mean, really, that was just such a terrible way to end the book. I mean, a great cliffhanger, terrible emotional way, but I finished it and I was just like, what? Are you kidding me? Are you serious right now? Did this really just happen? And this is exactly where you're deciding to end the book. Great. Now we have to wait so long for the next one, but whatever. I digress. So let's talk a little more about some storylines going on, some plot points. Julian has made this deal. I guess they've all kind of made this deal with the Seelie Queen. Always a bad idea. Is she going to hold up her end of the bargain? Probably not. It's probably going to turn into something terrible. She twisted her words, and even though she's telling the truth because she has to, because she's a fairy, they have a way of getting around that and not really saying what they mean or what their plans are. So always a bad idea. I don't think that's going to turn out how they hope. However, that may all just be, that's just all going to be gone now anyway, now to think about it, because the Unseelie King stole Annabelle is what it seemed, because Black Smoke came, his little half-crown symbol showed up, Annabelle's gone. So he has her, and has the Black Volume, because I read back at the end of the book, because I was like, I need to like make sure, wait, where's the Black Volume? The last mention of it, Annabelle had it on her back like a backpack when she was walking up to do the Inquisition and the Mortal Sword and everything. That's really the last like physical placement mention of the Black Volume. They mention it when they're, you know, and when they're asking her all the questions and they're explaining what happened with the Fairylands and the Unseelie King and everything. But the last time they mentioned where it's located was on Annabelle's back. So unless something drastic happened and that wasn't mentioned, the Unseelie King has the Black Volume as well, which is what we were trying to avoid this whole time. So yes, another thing, another plan gone to crap. Really want to know, like, what's really itching at me is who is that boy Ash that Drew met? Who is he? Why is he in a cave full of knives and weapons, but he's dressed like he's royalty? I mean, they said he was dressed in like velvet and all that kind of stuff, so it's not like he may be a prisoner, but maybe not, because I mean, he's dressed really nicely and surrounded by weapons, so that doesn't really sound like prisoner quarters to me. Who knows though? Fairyland is super weird. But who is that? Who's his mother? What is this? What's going on? So I feel like this is gonna be a huge twist and part of the next book, like I mentioned before. I know there's theories circling. I heard some theories. Very interesting, but I just don't know. I don't know what Cassandra Clare is going to do with that. Another thing, what the heck is wrong with Magnus? Now, our warlock, who comes in at all the right times and saves everyone with his magic and keeps a lot of bad things from happening, now he's sick. Oh, okay, great. His magic gets depleted and he passes out. Excellent. Just what we need in this really crappy situation. So Magnus is sick, and then who was it? Was it Alec that said, oh yeah, this has been happening lately, something's wrong. I mean, it's happening to Tessa too. What? So it's like this warlock disease? What's going on? Why are you touching my precious characters with this? Why are we throwing Tessa into this? I don't like where this is going. And one last thing I want to mention. I love how author came around at the end. He gave his life for his family at the beginning of the book, which was just so heart-wrenching and emotional and kind of perfect. I was like, I love how Cassandra Clare did that. But he wasn't just, you know, dead and forgotten. I love how at the very, very end, Cassandra Clare pulls him around again. And when Emma's about to kill Annabelle, she thinks about how author always said, like, mercy is better than vengeance. And of course Emma's like, oh, well, no, I'm killing her. And I went to kill her anyway. But, I mean, I just thought that was super sweet and a good way to kind of, like, do a little remembrance note to author and for his sacrifice. Although him sacrificing himself is why Annabelle is there in the first place. So that's kind of a weird circle thing to think about. But I thought it was a cool touch. So then we're left in just the crumbles and ashes of this way this story ends with Libby's death. So what are we supposed to do with ourselves now? I don't know what to say about that. It was crushing, it was emotional. Mostly I was just kind of angry. I think that's all I have to say about this book for this video. I know I didn't touch on everything, and honestly it has been so long since I've read The Mortal Instruments and The Infernal Devices, and even over a year since I read Lady Midnight. So I'm sure there are a lot of plot lines, a lot of clues, a lot of hints that I'm not picking up on, a lot of, you know, ties to other characters in previous books that I'm totally missing because it's been so long since I read those books. But if you picked up on something that I didn't, if you want to talk about anything that I didn't mention, please talk about it in the comments below. I'll be reading all the comments and replying to as many as I can, and I would love to have a full-on discussion with all of you about this book. Obviously, you know, looking forward to the next book, I guess, even though I feel like a lot of bad stuff's gonna happen before it can get good, if it does ever get better, but we shall see. We have to wait a long time for the next book, so that's great. I think it's like 2 years till the next one comes out. So maybe our wounds will kind of heal, we'll have time to heal, and we'll be, you know, prepared for the next book, and then it'll just, you know, kind of rip our hearts open again. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think that's everything. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry this video is probably pretty long, but it was fun, and I'm so glad I finally finished this book. I finished a book. It's been a while since I finished a book. So that's nice. I hope you enjoyed all of my thoughts, and like I said, be sure to comment below, and I will see you soon. Bye.